Welcome back to the What Do They Know podcast. This week, the guys recap all the headlines made by the Jets last week, and Jeff now takes his turn to rant about the Saints. They discuss a big performance from the Bears and another big loss for Dallas. But hey, what do they know?
What do they know? Well, we are about to find out. Welcome back to the What Do They Know podcast. Week 6 here with Nick and Jeff back with you as always. What's going on, man? How are you?
Not in the greatest of moods.
This is one of the rare instances in which one of us is wearing our team's gear after a loss.
Yeah, I mean, I came over for some football over your house. Obviously, we watched the Saints game over here on the multi-view. But yeah, just ignore this for right now. I'm going to cover this up as much as possible. And the hat, I would put it backwards, but there's a Saints logo back there too. So yeah, I'm not completely thrilled about wearing this right now. Obviously, but I didn't bring a set of clothes. I came in bold and I came in confident, and I'm left looking like a fool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect.
You know, I like to believe that not everybody is as intense about that as you and I are.
Right.
Like, I feel like some people are like, I don't really care if they lost. They're still my team. Like, I'm going to wear their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't do it.
Right. I mean, like, yeah, you can support your team, but I feel like after a loss, like, if you care, you would not wear it. That's how I feel.
No, I agree 100%.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to kick us off just with a continuation of my rant last week. Obviously, some big news in the headlines this week with the Jets. Tuesday morning came down. Robert Saleh relieved of his duties. I think it was officially worded, or his duties were no longer needed.
Right.
Which obviously was breaking news for just a ton of different reasons. I mean, I called for it last week on our podcast, just venting.
Mm-hmm.
I truly, that's how I felt, but I didn't think there was any way that it was going to happen after a week 5 game.
Right.
But nonetheless, Woody Johnson, owner of the Jets, made the decision. He claims he made it on his own. It wasn't Aaron Rodgers. It wasn't Joe Douglas, the GM. It was Woody Johnson, who came into Saleh's office Tuesday morning and let him go. So there's just a ton of different headlines there, right? I mean, people are saying that it was Rodgers because he found out that Saleh was going to fire Hackett, which is obviously his boy.
Right.
Just a ton of different things to kind of break down there. A lot of people are saying, you know, shame on the Jets. Why would you do it after week 5? You should have just done it in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily know how I feel about that, just because I had no problem with just considering last year just a complete wash with everything that happened with Rodgers getting injured. Like, I had no problem with that. Okay. They still won 7 games.
Right.
And I mean, you can't say that Saleh was not a part of that. So I had no problem bringing him back.
Yeah, I feel like they won 7 games in spite of the things that happened around them. You could say there's a great coaching job in there, but I feel like there's way too many things that were brewing, that were leaking out, type of things that were just didn't look good for the head coaching staff there. Anytime you have any sort of discrepancies or bad mojo in the locker room, the finger pointing starts with the head coach type of thing. So
yeah.
Robert Saleh, honestly, for both of us here, I felt like Robert Saleh and Dennis Allen are basically two sides, like the same cloth, cut off the same cloth, better as defensive coordinators and not as head coaches. But to me, it was just a matter of time, to be honest with you. Not no offense to you and the New York Jets, but obviously the New York Jets definitely have a lot higher expectations now with Aaron, fully healthy, I guess, right. Aaron Rodgers, for how much you have him for at age, 42?
42, yeah. And that's what Woody Johnson said. He said that in his 24 years of owning the team, in his opinion, this is the most talented team they've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he wanted to do it before the season slipped away.
Right.
Which is crazy, because as we sit here on Sunday night with them playing tomorrow,
mm-hmm.
if they win against the Bills, they're in first place.
Right.
Which is just crazy, considering they just fired their head coach.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a ton of talk on the national media this week, and this is the last thing I'll bring up before I move on. Chris Canty in particular from Unsportsmanlike on ESPN Radio, basically he just hates the Jets. I don't know if the Jets didn't draft him and he wanted to go there, or if they decided not to sign him in free agency when he was a player. I don't know what they did to him,
right? But
he has a vendetta against them. Like, he hates them. So I take everything he says with a grain of salt when it comes to, specifically when it comes to the Jets. He has good points elsewhere, but when it comes to the Jets, I kind of just gloss over it. But he just kept saying every time they talked about Saleh and all of his shortcomings and why he was the right person to get fired, he kept basically making comments that, in his opinion, it should have been Joe Douglas, the GM. Like, why is Joe Douglas still there when Robert Saleh is gone? And to me, and I actually tweeted at him, and he responded. I'll get into that in a minute.
Ooh,
yeah, he did.
Look at this.
But he kept saying, like, he got the most important position in football wrong, which is the quarterback, obviously referring to Zach Wilson. Right. And I get that, but GMs do that every single year. Right. There's GMs that miss on a quarterback every single year. And think about the guys that Joe Douglas has brought in: Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson traded up for, signed DJ Reed, who's the number one cornerback in the NFL right now. Traded for signed Mike Williams, signed Tyron Smith. He's the whole reason that they should be as competitive as they are. Right. So I just completely think that was a foolish notion to blame it on Saleh, blame it on Joe Douglas. Like, yes, he got the quarterback wrong. Okay. Period. Next sentence. He's also gotten so many picks right. Right. So many picks right. Like the fact that Joe Douglas is coming into question is completely foolish to me.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a top 10 pick and much more so a top 5 pick.
Oh, Sauce Gardner, by the way, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sauce Gardner.
Yeah, it just gets even that more magnified. And you list off all the things he's done right. But that Zach Wilson pick, I can't think of too many GMs that have survived a purge of the front office or your head coaching staff when you got the pick wrong with your quarterback, a quarterback being taken that high. Not too many names ring a bell in that scenario. But obviously, like you said, Joe Douglas has done a phenomenal job bringing talent elsewhere. But that Zach Wilson problem, I feel like should lie more in the responsibility of who is coaching him. Joe Douglas can bring in the people through the front door, but it's up to the coaching staff to train them up and put them in the right situations to succeed there. Whose decision it was to start Zach Wilson straight off the bat, I don't know, but whoever made that call was the person who should be held responsible for his lack of progress.
Yep. So I tweeted at Chris Canty Tuesday when I heard his hot take about Joe Douglas, because he has an expression on the show. He always says context matters, right? So like the headline, what's the context around the headline that you're going to throw out there? So I basically tweeted at him and said, dude, like, you always say context matters. You can't talk about the pick that Joe Douglas missed on without talking about all the other ones that he got right.
Right.
And I ended it by saying that list is much longer of the picks that he got right. And he tweeted back at me, which I was appreciative of, that he at least responded.
Right.
But all he said was, all those other picks don't matter if you get the quarterback wrong. Which, again, I disagree with, because the whole argument around the Jets with Sam Darnold and Geno Smith was that they never had talent around him. So which is it? Right. Does it only matter if you get the quarterback right, or do you still also need those supplemental pieces?
Yeah.
Like, I just think it's a one-sided mentality that he has.
Yeah.
I just disagree with.
Like obviously the quarterback pick is the fancy hoopla type of pick that's going to shine above everyone else. But a quarterback is only successful because of the pieces around him.
Correct.
Look at the Bryce Young situation. He had no talent around him in Carolina, and he's now benched. So to say that the other picks don't matter, not to challenge the knowledge, but I think it's kind of foolish, to be honest with you.
I'll challenge it. I completely agree.
Right.
I think it is foolish.
Yeah, because a quarterback obviously has some steps to go through, and NFL is a lot different than college. We all know that. But having the right pieces around you and having a defense that can keep you in games and build your confidence in little small ways like that grows a quarterback. Getting blown out every single game and having no receivers to throw to is not going to gain you confidence as a quarterback. So getting those picks right is definitely a feather in the cap in Joe Douglas's resume there. But the Zach Wilson one definitely hurts, because that was supposed to be your franchise guy for the next 10 to 15 years. But yeah. I get both sides, but the rest of the team matters. I'm sorry.
Agreed.
There's 60 other guys on the team.
Right.
Yep.
All right. So let's move on from that.
Okay.
My top stories from this week. I'm sorry, as a Jets fan, I could not start the show with that. I mean, they can't have something like that happen and then just not address it on the show. So
you got tweeted back at it.
I did. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yep.
All right. So top stories this week of games that have actually taken place. I got the Cowboys.
Okay.
So, oh boy,
That's a pick.
Daniel Jones just did another Daniel Jones thing.
It's not a pick six yet. Okay.
Nope. All right.
Man,
That was a good drive, but wasted
wasted.
with a pick. Dallas Cowboys.
Mhm.
So they're 3-3. I just think that we need to stop with the narrative or the hype around them, or even giving them the time of day.
This is their year.
They're so bad. They're so bad.
Every year is their year.
They're so bad.
We didn't boys. Come on.
Dude. Okay, so they have given up 44 points to the Saints, 28 points to the Ravens. They gave up 47 points to Detroit today. And now looking back at how awful Cleveland is, the fact that they gave up 17 points to Cleveland is kind of like disgusting too. Like Cleveland's horrible.
Right.
And they gave up 17 to Cleveland. So I just think that the Cowboys are done. Stick a fork in them. I just think that they need to stop getting attention. Not only is their defense atrocious, and granted, they had, Dexter Lawrence is on IR, Micah Parsons was out. Like, I get that. But these guys, this defense was horrible before them. 2 of the 3 games that I just read you were with both of them.
Right.
So, I mean, you can only take that for so far.
Yeah.
I just think that Dallas is done.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you at all. Obviously, Dallas is a big revenue brand. Goes beyond football with those guys. So obviously, the more people talk about them, I guess the better it is for
they're like
some
a business.
People. Yeah, exactly.
They're yeah.
It's better for some people's pockets the more they're talked about.
Yeah.
And granted, they definitely have a big fan base. So I understand where we're coming from, where we need to stop talking about them as contenders.
I'm so sick of hearing them on the radio.
Yep.
Dude, no matter what, if Jerry Jones sneezes, it gets talked about on the radio for an hour.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. I mean, there's just got to be a time where Jerry Jones has to hire a GM. He's kind of I wouldn't say he's that old, but he's getting up to an age where you're going to start questioning his decisions, whether they're age related type of decisions. Like I get he's trying to get at least one more Super Bowl in before anything else happens. But you need a GM. You need someone who's going to look at the numbers, who's going to crunch the numbers, who's going to look at the talent, who has a good eye for talent. And is it really, I guess, in that old school mentality that I guess Jerry Jones kind of grew up in? But yeah, right now they have big names, but they're just not making big time plays.
No, and they're I would say that their offense is equally as in trouble as their defense.
Yeah.
I mean, they have CeeDee Lamb. They kind of maybe sometimes have Jake Ferguson as their tight end, good pass catcher. That's it.
Yeah,
they got a guy named Turpin and Tolbert, who I've never freaking heard of,
right?
Who are catching passes, who are like the guys that are supposed to be helping out CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah,
and Dak did not look good today at all.
Nope. I mean, they chalked this up as one of those things when the Saints rolled in there and give them a whooping. But
this is 3 games now.
Yep,
all of which were at home.
Yep. So this is definitely a contrast to last year's Cowboys team, which went undefeated last year at home before the playoffs.
Yep.
So I think we have enough of a sample size, even though we're not even halfway through the year. But I feel like there's definitely a bad taste in our mouths when watching the Cowboys. They're just not looking fluid when competing against good teams. Maybe they'll beat up on some bad teams or sneak away with a win or two. But the thing is, against competitive teams like Detroit today, who I feel like is the class of the NFC,
yeah, 100%.
They just got absolutely trounced and didn't really even put up a competitive fight. So I agree with you. The sooner we get rid of the Cowboys, the better.
I'm so over them.
Yep, the better it is for everyone.
I'm more over them than I am the Chiefs, which is crazy because the Chiefs have won it a million years in a row.
That's a statement.
Yeah,
that is a statement to me. I wouldn't go that far.
Well, that's just I'm done with them.
I get it. Yep.
All right. So then, next thing I wrote down is just I thought it was interesting how a couple teams got some stars back today, and it showed in their performances.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of guys I wrote down: Joe Mixon, active for Houston after 4 or 5 weeks, and then Philly got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith back. So Mixon, I'll just read some stats here real quick. 13 carries, 102 yards, and a touchdown. And then he also had 30 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. A.J. Brown, 6 catches, 116 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Smith, 3 for 64 and a touchdown. So instant production out of 3 stars that these teams were missing.
Yeah.
Both teams got the win. Specifically around Houston, we've talked about how their wins really haven't been impressive. And I questioned if, Mixon really, the absence of Mixon made more of an impact than we were realizing.
Right.
And I kind of feel like that showed today to be true.
Yeah.
I mean, they scored 41 points today against, it's the Patriots, but the Patriots do have a decent defense.
Yeah. Jared Daniel, there's definitely a defensive-minded head coach.
Yeah, so I think that these teams are in really good shape going forward as long as these guys can stay healthy. And I think specifically Houston, I have really high expectations for now if Mixon can stay in the lineup and have the production that he did today.
Yeah, I feel like Mixon kind of simplifies the offense there in Houston. I feel like it gives them more of a direction to go to. I feel like sometimes C.J. Stroud, obviously he's only a second-year quarterback, even though we feel like he's a little bit older and mature as a quarterback, but he's only a second-year quarterback. Maybe he overestimates some reads or something, but obviously the injury to Nico Collins last week maybe it limits your viewpoints. Dalton Schultz kind of got a little bit more involved in the passing game today. Tank Dell, I believe, had a touchdown today. Stephon Diggs had a touchdown today. Obviously, when you have 3 prime wide receivers, you kind of want to satisfy everybody, but I feel like that might be more of a detriment, especially as a second-year quarterback, because there's definitely a mentality there where you want to satisfy. You want to be that guy that gives everyone the ball, but there's going to be days where it's just not going to happen. The defenses are going to cover blank one person, and it's going to have to rely on one of the other guys. But obviously that might not make that one guy happy, and that's where I feel like C.J. Stroud kind of overcompensates a little bit. But with Joe Mixon back in the fold, I feel like that gives them more of a direction of with the running game. And taking what's open in the passing game. Joe Mixon is definitely an underrated.
They're just more
gear.
Yeah, they're just more balanced.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's definitely an underrated gear there in that Texan offense. But
All right, what do you got for us?
So for me, I got the Bears as my number 1 top story. Obviously, Caleb Williams has done a phenomenal job over the past 2 weeks. This week he went 23 for 29, 226 yards, 4 TD. Passing, and then 1 interception, and then he had 4 rushes for 56 yards. That's a prime prestige stat line right there. Keenan Allen finally had some juice in him. I feel like he'll play a big role as a red zone target now, rather than, I mean, he is up there for a wide receiver. So I feel like he's only 32, but he is up there for a wide receiver. But he's got the skill set and route running to be a threat there in the red zone rather than the speed nowadays. But he had 2 touchdown catches. Cole Kmet had 2 touchdown receptions. Obviously, that's a big body there at the tight end position. I feel like the Bears are starting to figure it out offensively, which was the biggest question mark, because defensively there were some worries, but I feel like I was a lot more secure about their defense than their offense. Obviously, Caleb Williams was the biggest question mark, being a rookie. Not knowing what to expect from him, but this offense of the Bears is definitely looking scary with Roma Dunze and Keenan Allen kind of looking alive now.
Yeah, I mean, today was kind of the coming out party, I feel like, for Caleb Williams and just the offense in general. And I think it's funny how we just got done talking about how Joe Mixon makes Houston more balanced. And if you look at the last 2 weeks, which are Caleb Williams' best games, you could argue that DeAndre Swift has been a huge part of that, because his last 2 games, last 2 or 3 games, really, he's kind of figured it out and really come alive.
Ever since I told this show that Ruscon Johnson was going to take his spot, DeAndre Swift.
He must have heard you.
Yeah, DeAndre Swift.
He must be a listener.
He was sweating.
He
was sweating.
That's the only explanation. He clearly listens to the show. And you pissed him off.
I pissed him off.
So
thankfully for your fantasy team, apparently.
Yes, thank you for my fantasy team. But no, I don't think it's a coincidence that you figure out your run game,
right,
and the rest of your offense clicks,
right.
Now I will, and I think I either told you this or I told my dad earlier that I still think that when it comes to just their record alone, that the Bears are a pretender. Personally, 4-2, I think they're probably one of the weakest 4-2 teams,
right?
And a lot of that just has to do with the inconsistency around Caleb Williams. Like he had an interception today in the second quarter that he drastically underthrew DJ Moore by probably 10, 15 yards. It was a walk-in touchdown and it ended up getting picked because he just put too much air under the ball.
Right.
So there's those things are still going to happen.
Right.
But I think Bears fans can probably finally start to take a sigh of relief that maybe, you can be sure that he's not a complete bust.
Yeah, better days are ahead.
Yeah, because I think after the first couple weeks when you watch him and you watch Jaden Daniels, Bears fans were like, dude, what the freak?
What do we do?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. But I think maybe now they can rest easy knowing that he looks like he is going to be a really good piece for them.
Yeah.
And today was a huge improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yep, that's where I am with the Bears. I wouldn't shift them being into pretender mode just yet because that is a tough division that they're playing in right now with the Packers, the Lions, and the Vikings. So that's it's a rough road for Chicago to get into the playoffs, but being in that division with those tough opponents is only going to make them for the better, to be honest with you. And my second top story, this is where I'm going to take a page out of your book and I'm going to rant.
Okay.
So this is the Saints.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm throwing a Hail Mary here. And you got Robert Saleh fired, so I'm hoping to get Dennis Allen fired.
Okay.
So obviously last year I wrote on Dennis Allen for a long time. I'm going to write him again. Obviously Spencer Rattler came in and Derek Carr is injured, but a rookie quarterback, how much can you blame him? I'm blaming him. Okay. You're in charge of the defense. You are a defensive minded guy, and you got 50 laid on you. You got 51 points laid on you. You got a 50 burger. What are you doing? I am sorry, but that is not acceptable. To me, there was just no effort in terms of tackling.
They couldn't tackle at all.
Could not tackle. We were both watching the game, and there was just no. They looked like they wanted to punch the ball out to get off the field, not to create the turnover and create momentum. They wanted to get off the field, or else if they missed the punch out of the ball, go in for the touchdown so we can get off the field. And to me. I don't know if what it is. I don't know if the team kind of just gave up halfway through it because they were up 27-24. They came back from 17 nothing down with 29 points, but and good things were looking. But after halftime, Todd Bowles and Tampa Bay made all the right adjustments. Rattler could not get anything.
He had no time to do anything.
He got blitzed on basically every single play. The running game couldn't get going. It just felt like there was no adjustments being made to what Tampa Bay was doing, and that to me as a fan is frustrating. Like they went out three like the first three drives, and I felt like it was the same exact thing every single time. Spencer Rattler would drop back, and there was someone right in his face, and he would have to scramble somewhere and throw it out of bounds. Eventually, by the third or fourth drive, I felt like he was just getting out of the pocket just out of like a habit. Like maybe he still had a couple seconds inside that pocket, but at that point he wasn't even getting a chance. He was like, I've been hit enough today. Like let me make it home. So to me, I this is probably obviously they have a Thursday night game, so it's not likely that Dennis Allen is going to get fired this week. But honestly, to me, his seat is burning right now. It's on fire. So if nothing improves come Thursday, especially against Sean Payton getting your new coach fired after him, that'd be quite the storyline. But to me, I'm at the point to being done with Dennis Allen.
Yeah, I don't think you can do it on a short week.
Right.
I think that just puts the team in a bad spot. Now, if they have a similar performance,
they're already in a bad spot.
with a 10 days off.
Yeah.
After the Thursday game, then I think that could be a realistic chance. But yeah, I just felt like the tackling, the effort was, I don't want to say effort, but the fundamentals, right? Tackling is the number one thing you do in football.
Right.
And there were so many missed tackles in that game that were it was staggering to me.
Right.
That game was drunk today. That was the craziest game, back and forth, penalties, turnovers, injuries, like crazy game. I think that Todd Bowles really was at his best today, especially in the second half, kind of throwing around some different schemes, different blitzes. I mean, Rattler just looked like he had no time to do anything in the second half.
Right.
You and I both commented in the first half that he actually looked like we were impressed.
Yeah.
But the second half was just a completely different story, and I think that just credits adjustments from Todd Bowles and maybe not enough from Dennis Allen.
Right. So I mean, I can go on, but I don't want to go.
Yeah.
Make it a Saints Rant podcast.
Okay.
So, yep.
All right. Overreactions. I'll just
Overreaction.
keep going first here.
Yep.
I'll throw this one out for you. So, I like this one.
Oh.
Okay. So this season should be a lesson to teams paying too much for a quarterback, i.e., Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, Joe Burrow. So those guys listed combined that I just listed, their record is 6-17.
Ooh.
All of them are getting over $50 million a year.
Yeah.
Right. So you think about the Cowboys, the Jags, the Browns, the Bengals. I just think that, does this say something going forward? Because the market's only going up and up and up and up for a quarterback. I mean, Dak Prescott, I think I think he got $60 million a year with his new contract that he just signed.
Yeah.
And I know the cap is going up, but it's not going up as much as we're increasing the pay on quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I don't know if maybe this is just a coincidence. I think that two of the guys that I listed, Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson, are going to go down as two of the worst contracts ever. Maybe that's more of a hot take than what I originally said.
Oh, the Trevor Lawrence one, yeah. The Deshaun Watson, I don't think it's that much of a hot take at this point.
He's atrocious.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence looks atrocious today too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wonder if this is something where, we never really gave Tom Brady his dues for always taking less money. He never took his full amount that he could have.
Right. His worth. Right.
To be able to increase the spots around him. And these, like we talk, perfect example is Dallas. Right. They gave CeeDee Lamb, I think, $35 million a year. They gave Dak $60 million a year.
Right.
They didn't even pick up the phone to call Derrick Henry. Right. Because Jerry Jones said that he couldn't afford him.
Right.
But he never even called to find out. And they've already said that they're not even going to reach out on the Devontae Adams trade because they can't afford him.
Right.
So my whole point is, like, are we giving these quarterbacks too much money at the hindrance of the rest of our team? Because, like we already talked about, he's throwing to guys like named Tolbert and Turpin.
Right.
Like, what are we doing?
Right. And I've always been on this boat, and I understand when teams go all in with the quarterback on their rookie deal, because that's the opportunity you have to afford other players before you have to pay your quarterback. It's unfortunate to see. Obviously, you want to see your quarterback build around talent like Tom Brady was. Obviously, Tom Brady, he had great offenses, but he also had great defenses there in New England. Obviously, Bill Belichick was a great mastermind at the defensive plays. But it's definitely something to be worth said that Tom Brady would take some chunk out of his net worth, I guess, for especially in football standards, to improve the roster around him. It's hard to blame people who want their money and be secure for the rest of their life, but at the same time, if you want to remain competitive and not be scrutinized and booed every step of the way, you might have to dink and dunk a little bit on nickel and dime yourself a little bit just to make sure the rest of the roster is adequate to the level of standards that you want to achieve. Personally, if you have a rookie quarterback like Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels right now, if I'm the commander of the Chicago Bears, I'm timelining everything right now to be competitive in the next 2 years.
Yep.
Like that, that's my Super Bowl window is 2 years from now and 2 to 4 years before you have to pay Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. That is my timeline. After that, I blow up the roster and retool somehow. But draft picks are what make a Super Bowl contender. I feel like it's not the free agents. I'll tell you that. Right. I feel like it starts with the draft.
So let me go off on a little tangent here for a minute. I want to get your opinion on this. Do you think that we put too much value on
we as in who?
We as in the NFL.
The NFL
put too much value in the wrong kind of quarterback. Now, let me explain that. So what I mean is we And the quarterback should be the person that makes everybody around them better.
Right.
Right. So you think about guys like, again, Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
He made Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, Danny Amendola, like stars.
Yeah.
Right. Absolute stars. And they were for the most part nobodies. Right. Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings, Donald Driver. I'm not going to throw Devontae Adams in there because clearly he's a star. But like Green Bay never drafted a wide receiver in the first round when they had Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
But he made all of his receivers better.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Does Trevor Lawrence do that? Does Joe Burrow do that? Because he has guys like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Right.
Both of those guys are going to get max contracts next year. Those guys are going to get paid.
Right.
Now, we haven't seen Joe Burrow without a star wide receiver in his career in the NFL.
Right.
Right. Trevor Lawrence, is he elevating guys around him right now?
Mm-hmm.
No. Right. Like, I just question, like, are we putting our money?
I feel like we're not. It's not about the value. It's about the being desperate.
I think that's
I feel like every team is just
wanting
so
to
desperate
hit on a quarterback so bad.
Like as soon as you see a flash that they can be a franchise QB,
okay,
you're buying it.
Okay, so timeout. You just made a great point because Trevor Lawrence, he literally has had a flash.
Yeah,
he had like a 6 or 7 game streak at the end of his second year with Doug Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
They went on a run. They made the division. They won the division. They won one playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's it.
And this is like his 4th year.
Yep.
And that's the only sample size that we've had. That he's good. There's your flash.
That's your
and
flash.
He got paid $250 million.
That's what it's worth.
It's stupid to me. Like, I don't know. I just think that the quarterback position, like the way that we value it and put money into it,
no, absolutely,
is just getting a little out of control.
I agree with you 100%. The quarterback position is obviously the most expensive, and it's the most important, but it can also be the most devastating position in the entire team. It's your point guard, basically. You're supposed to make everyone around you. You're supposed to have the ball at all times and distribute however you see that's going to benefit the team. The problem is at $250 million, you're supposed to make that decision right, basically 99% of the time, not 50% of the time with 50% completion percentage and having more interceptions than touchdown passes or something like that. But to me, like I said, it's just about being desperate about finding the right quarterback because there's just so little of them that can succeed at this level. I mean, off the top of your head, how many people would you say are elite class quarterbacks?
Patrick Mahomes.
Anyone else? That's it. Like that guy's worth the money because he elevates the people. Rashee Rice came on last year. No one heard of Rashee Rice, but before Patrick Mahomes started throwing the ball. Xavier Worthy, obviously we knew he was fast, but
would Travis Kelce be Travis Kelce without Pat Mahomes?
I don't think Travis Kelce was Travis Kelce with Alex Smith. To be honest with you, even before Patrick Mahomes came over, but it's a great conversation to have. I just don't think anyone would be able to convince these owners that, hey, it's not worth it. Let's retool. Let's. It goes back to whoever you tweeted. Who wasn't he again? Chris Canny. It's down to that mentality. The rest of the roster doesn't matter because you missed the quarterback, and maybe that's the dominant mindset right now. I
just feel like that's so short-sighted.
Yeah, it is absolutely 100%. But in this business, I don't know. I just don't agree with the way rosters are tooled. Like look at the Vikings right now, and look at Tampa Bay. They found Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. Like these guys were basically in the scrap heap, just waiting for an opportunity, and now they're thriving in their new offenses. It's about tooling your rosters appropriately and having the right guys in place in your coaching staff. I feel like every quarterback has a chance to succeed. They're drafted and playing in the NFL for a reason. They obviously have the talent for it. It's just about putting them in the right situations, and most of the time they just aren't. So, yep.
All right, and then my last one. I don't know that this is even really an overreaction or even really a hot take, to be honest with you, but the NFC North is the best division of football. right? I just think that that's kind of a no-brainer at this point. The Vikings 5.
Okay.
No team has a losing record.
Right.
No team even has a 500 record.
Yeah.
We got the Vikings at 5-0, Lions at 3-1, Green Bay and Chicago at 4-2.
Yeah. Yeah. See, the reason I laugh is because we don't talk about our overreactions. We just talk. We maybe give each other a hint or something, but we didn't say anything about the divisions. I went with the exact opposite. Instead of strongest division, I went with the weakest division. Yeah, I didn't think you were gonna go that route, so I was like, I don't think Nick's gonna say it, so I won't say anything about it.
Great minds.
I know, great minds. Look at that. But I agree with you. Vikings, Chicago, they're now at 4-2, being competitive. Green Bay obviously has Jordan Love there. Like honestly, obviously Detroit's the class of the NFC, in my opinion. I agree with you. It's hard to argue against that fact. Obviously, we usually rely on the AFC North to kind of be the most competitive and heavy hitting division in football. But this year, that NFC North is definitely making waves with their young quarterbacks and Caleb Williams and Jared Goff with some unfinished business there in Detroit. I like it. I like that.
And we got Vikings Lions next week, which I'm stoked about.
That is an exciting game. Yep.
All right, what do you got?
So I'll start off with that one just to lead off. So NFC West is the weakest division. So right now we got San Francisco and Seattle at 3-3 apiece, Arizona at 2-4, and then LA at 1-4. So obviously San Francisco was heralded as the class of the NFC before the season started, and obviously coming off a Super Bowl loss. But to me, they just aren't the same team. If Christian McCaffrey is not the Christian McCaffrey of last year, which I doubt he will be,
that's assuming he's going to come back.
Yeah, if he comes back at all. I just don't see San Francisco making a big run this year in the playoffs or whatever team comes out of that division. I just don't see a long-standing tenure there.
Yeah, so I agree. I think that the AFC South is right there with them.
Yeah, you can argue that. Yep.
But Houston, obviously, they have the dominant team with Houston.
Houston's more.
The other three are just a train wreck. Colts won today. Whatever, they beat the Titans. Titans are horrible. Jags are horrible. I just Colts. I'm not a believer in. So I would say that the AFC South is right there. But no, I would have to agree that so far the NFC West. Now I will say that it wouldn't surprise me if one or two of those teams really
turn it on,
have a strong second half.
Right.
I could see that with the Niners. I could see that with the Seahawks. I'm still not even. I know the Cardinals got trounced today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not even 100% sold on the fact that they're a bad team.
Right.
I mean, they're just too inconsistent. But yeah, I would say right now you have to say that the NFC West is definitely not good. Not a good division.
Right. It's not a good position at all.
Yep.
I would say it came down to three divisions. It was the AFC South and the AFC East, surprisingly. You have the Bills, the Jets, the Patriots, and right now the toolless Miami Dolphins.
That's a fair comment.
Okay. I was just curious about your take on that.
No, I agree. I mean, I had to stop and think, really?
Yeah.
But I mean, the Bills are 3-2. Yep. They have some question marks. I still think the Bills are going to be good.
Yeah.
Jets are a hot mess right now. Pats have promise, I think.
Yeah.
Coming up, but which you'll talk about here in just a second.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Dolphins, yeah. But no, I don't have an argument against that necessarily.
Okay. Well, what comes to my next overreaction, the Patriots have found their next quarterback for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Drake May.
Yeah.
20 for 33, 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 5 rushes, and 38 yards off those 5 rushes.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I know they lost 41-21, but if today's any indication of what he's going to be, you have to be excited as a Patriots fan.
Right.
I mean, we had it on part of our, 4-screen multi-view while we were watching the games earlier. And I mean, how many times did I make a comment that he made a phenomenal throw?
Yeah, what a throw.
Multiple times.
Yep.
And I think he showed he has a really strong arm.
Mm-hmm.
He has composure. They showed highlights of him going through progressions, looking deep, and then making the check down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously he threw a couple picks. He had the blindside hit that he lost a fumble. So he had those rookie moments.
Right.
But I mean, it's an overreaction either way, whether I say yes or no, because it's literally only one game.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I would say that that's not an overreaction because he played better than I expected.
Right. He definitely. I felt like the Patriots started off a little rough, but Drake May definitely got his feet underneath him as the game went on. Honestly, halfway through the game, when Houston kind of had that game in hand already, I thought like, man, how unfair is it to put Drake May in this game to have his first career start against a 4-1 Texan team, or whatever they were. I was like, you're putting him against one of the better teams in the NFL. This is another case of putting your quarterback in there to struggle. What are you guys doing for his development? But no, I mean, Drake May took a shot. There was a little scare there where he was like laying on the floor a little bit.
Yeah.
But he got up. It shows his tenacity and his durability a little bit. Honestly, Drake May impressed me. Some of those throws were high level throws that they were not common throws by any measure. So Drake May, there's definitely a lot of promise there. That's definitely your QB1 going, especially into next year. Going into the offseason, QB is not going to be a concern, I feel like.
Yeah. So side note, it brings up an interesting conversation that you and I never even really talked about, was the decision to start him. I thought it was I still think that it was a little questionable, a little curious, just because everything you heard was that they wanted, gosh, help me out here.
To draft?
No, the quarterback that was at the start of the season.
Jacoby Brissett?
Thank you. Jacoby Brissett. They wanted him to play like the majority of the year.
Right.
And so I think that it was less about wanting Drake May to play, and I think it was more about how poorly they looked with Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
Which is a little disappointing if you're a Patriots fan. I mean, I don't know. You kind of want to stick to your guns and just say, screw it, this year's a disaster anyways. Like let's let Drake May grow.
Yeah.
I thought this week of all weeks was a little curious.
Like for me, week 10 is probably your target goal if you're going to put in your rookie and see what he's got and kind of make him mature. We obviously, this is week 6. It's a little, for me, it's a little premature. Obviously, I agree with you on that one 100%. But if I don't know. I guess you got to give your fan base a little something to.
That's the thing, right?
On.
It's such a fine line because how long can you go out and just put a horrible product on the field and have your fan base, your ownership, your players not, freak out and cause a problem. So, obviously got to give Gerard Mayo the benefit of the doubt that he had the pulse of the team. But I just thought it was curious that all of a sudden he's starting when, I had heard that he might even not play a single snap this year.
Yeah.
So
like I don't know. I can always say in the offseason, I'm in favor of redshirting rookie QB. Just let him grow and let him learn. But like as the season progresses, like these weeks become long and hard for a football team because especially if there's no hope or there's no light at the end of the tunnel with a quarterback that you're trotting out like a Jacoby Brissett, it becomes daunting for that team, and you will lose that locker room in such a flash, and then all of a sudden you're out of a head coaching gig.
Right.
So props to Jared Mayo for pulling that trigger because I feel like the Patriots fan base and that team itself got a flash in the pan today. Definitely.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yep.
All right. So we will jump into our power rankings.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a few shuffles. Last week, I just completely forgot the Lions. So that did not happen this week. So
right.
Number 1, I kept the Vikings at number 1.
Okay.
I kept the Chiefs at number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I have the Lions at number 3.
Okay.
I have the Ravens at number 4.
Okay.
Newsflash, the Ravens are still very, very good. We didn't really talk about them today.
Yeah.
But I think that they're very quickly rising to be the cream of the crop.
They found their mojo with Derrick Henry there.
And we talked about it earlier that Lamar Jackson's 2 games in a row over 300 yards passing. He's finally becoming like the actual passer along with the dynamic runner.
And we talked about it all last year with Todd Monk and wanting to kind of divert over to his Lamar Jackson's arm rather than his legs, and now it's paying a lot more dividends because Lamar Jackson now has another year of that offense under his belt, and that's kind of why I went with him as my reaching the Super Bowl there.
You were sweating that.
I was sweating it over the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I was like, what am I doing? What is going on? But nope, they're coming back strong.
Yep. And then number 5, Houston.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I have literally the same exact list, except I just flip-flop Texans and Ravens.
Okay.
So Texans at 4, Ravens at 5. Honestly, I would buy that argument to have the Ravens above the Texans right now. The wins that the Ravens have gotten have been impressive.
Yeah.
Like they haven't been squeaky get bys like the Texans kind of have had outside the Patriots game today. But the Ravens have played some tough games and really trounced on some teams. Obviously, the Commanders are a tough team. They were going as high as possible as a team can be. Jaden Daniels has gotten all the popularity and all the hype surrounding around him, but the Ravens kind of put a little step on the throat on that one. So I like the Ravens a lot. But
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so we'll jump into our fantasy bolo, something to look out for going forward.
Mm-hmm.
This one's a little bit of a homer pick for me,
Okay.
but I actually wrote down the Jets.
Okay.
So with everything that came in with this week, one of the things that their new head coach, their interim head coach, I should say, Jeff Ulbrich, what he did is he demoted Nathaniel Hackett.
About time.
Thank God.
I'm sorry. About time.
He didn't fire him, which I don't think Aaron Rodgers would allow.
It's so strange to me.
It is very strange. He lost his play calling duties, and they named Todd Downing the new play caller, which his official title is pass game coordinator. So Todd Downing does have experience as an OC. Was with Tennessee for a while, a couple other teams.
Okay.
But I'm curious to see what that's going to mean for the Jets fantasy, from a fantasy perspective. You think about guys that have really underperformed, Breece Hall up until last week. Garrett Wilson was a no-show.
Right.
One of the things that everybody says that the Jets need is motion, right? And they need something to spice up the offense.
Right.
So I'll be curious to see what it looks like tomorrow night
on
Monday Night Football. That immediately to me, if when I hear motion, the guy I think of is Xavier Gibson. Okay. He's their kick returner, punt returner, fast, dynamic guy.
Right.
So that I think could be something to possibly look out for. But I would really, if you have Breece Hall, you have Garrett Wilson, even the tight end Conklin, Mike Williams, like any of the guys on that team, really pay attention to Monday and what happens, because I feel like you're going to have a good idea of what their offense is going to look like going forward.
The number one thing I would look for, to be honest with you, is how much Aaron Rodgers audibles out of the play call.
Yeah.
If he audibles,
that's what I told my dad. So like, how much does this really matter?
Yeah.
How much does the play caller really matter if Rodgers is just going to call whatever he wants anyways?
Right.
Like what power did Hackett have to begin with? Like, I don't know the answer to that. I just think it's very curious.
To me, I mean, having an offensive coordinator you're familiar with, I guess, kind of calms down, I guess, when temperatures fly a little bit, it's a little flaring situation or something. Like, you can understand where the other one's coming from a little bit better. So this is where the interesting dynamic kind of comes in, when you don't have your boy, I guess, to rely on anymore. If he's going to audible off of something, I feel like Aaron Rodgers is the type of character who's going to make it very loud and clear that he's going to audible out of something. So like you said, at the end of the day, it might not matter. The offense might look the same if Aaron Rodgers is calling the plays anyway. But I feel like we're going to get a big indication by how much Breece Hall is used. I feel like that's your number one indicator of where that offense is going to go. How often do you run the ball? Is it getting ran right down the middle? Are you putting him in space on the edges? What are you doing with Breece Hall? To me, that is, like we talked earlier about Joe Mixon and running backs dictating the flow of your offense. Breece Hall is the flow of your offense, or at least Braylon Allen to some extent. But relying on a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers to throw it to Conklin or Garrett Wilson or Gibson, to me, that's just going to be an Aaron Rodgers, Nathaniel Hackett scheme, and as we've seen, hasn't worked.
Yep.
So interesting. So for me, I got the Atlanta Falcons right here. I got trade Bijan now. If you have Bijan Robinson, trade him now. He scored 2 TDs.
I like that.
Yep. And he scored 2 TDs, 15 rushing attempts for 95 yards, 2 TDs, 3 receptions for 10 yards. Honestly, you got Algier, you got Drake
Algier
London.
had over 100 yards today.
Yep. Algier and a touchdown.
And a touchdown.
Within like the I think like a 3-yard touchdown attempt or something. But yeah, I feel like there's just too many weapons right there right now for Bijan kind of like to take over the backfield and take over pass catching duties out of the backfield or really do anything. You got Kyle Pitts, you got Drake London, obviously Algier, as we mentioned, is there. Mooney is there in Atlanta. This is a scenario where there's just too many weapons to really rely on Bijan Robinson right now. So if you got Bijan and he kind of took off for you finally, and this is the week you kind of waited for,
Get rid of him.
Get rid of them.
Trade them all it's hot.
Trade them as you can.
I like that.
Yep. So
like
that's my fantasy bolo.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. We will wrap up by doing our picks. So I don't know why I did this last week, but I picked my upset was the Giants over the Bengals, which is currently happening
right,
as we speak
right now.
So we're not going to be able to fully give the standings. I got my lock right, which was Atlanta over Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of in wait and see mode on my second pick, but
right.
Jeff went 1-1.
Mr. Consistent.
Yep. You got, what game did you get right?
I got the Texans over the Patriots.
Texans over the Patriots as your lock. Denver was your upset pick over the Chargers, which didn't work out. I liked that pick. I actually picked in our weekly picks. I picked the Broncos to win as well, but that didn't happen. So you were 1-1. You're 6-6 overall.
Yeah.
I'm either going to be 6-6 or 7-5. Depending on how this game ends out.
Right.
So we'll go over our picks. So my lock for next week, I'm running it back with picking the team over Carolina. I picked Washington as my lock over Carolina.
Right.
Washington at home. I think they'll bounce back. I think that's an easy one. My upset is the Texans over the Packers. Packers favored by 2.5. I like the Texans here. I know the Packers put 31 up or 37 today, something like that on the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals handed them that game today,
right,
in a lot of different ways. Like I'm not fully a believer on what the Packers are, and I think the Texans, like we talked about earlier, started to figure it out today with getting Joe Mixon back.
Yeah.
So I like the Texans over the Packers.
Yeah, I just want to remind everyone that we go back and forth about who chooses our picks first.
Yep.
And
I got to pick first this week.
Yeah. And so this is why my lock and upset are very not lucky and upsetting. They're very strange, but I'll take a shot at it anyway. My lock is the Bengals over the Browns.
Okay.
So 4.5.
I don't hate that.
Yeah. 4.5 point favorites are the Bengals right now. Obviously the Bengals are playing a little bit better football offensively. I don't know if the Browns could keep up offensively if the Bengals show up a little bit like they have been.
I think that's a good pick.
Well, thank you. And then my upset, I got the Patriots over the Jags over in London. It's a little bit risky because the Jags.
That's an upset?
Yeah. Right now it's 4.5 for the Jags.
4.5?
4.5, surprisingly. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
I like that's, yeah.
I did with what I had left, okay?
Yeah, neither of those are very good.
I know. Thank you. Thank you so much.
It sounds like 0-2 to me.
Hey, we risk it to get the biscuit out here. So obviously the Jags are playing back-to-back games in London, so that kind of puts them in a bit of an advantage. But the Patriots, with what they showed today, I felt like offensively they definitely have some promise there, and defensively I feel like Jared Mayo will probably gear those guys up a little bit better than they were after their showing of this week. So that's where I am with my picks.
Okay, I like it. Also, side note, who did the Jags piss off that they have back-to-back games in London for 2 years in a row? They did the same thing last year. Like why?
I don't know. This was back when I feel like this was back when the NFL wanted a team in London, and the Jags were the number one, I guess, option because Jacksonville just was not a thriving franchise right there, and I feel like that was their number one choice to go to London is the Jacksonville Jaguars. But they were trying to build a home base over there with all these games in London for Jacksonville, but I think there's been a change of plans. I think even London doesn't want them.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps up week 6.
Yep.
I personally am very, very excited for tomorrow night, Monday. So we're gonna have the split screen going on. We're gonna have the Jets Bills Monday Night Football game, and then we're gonna have game 1 of the ALCS Yankees Guardians. It's gonna be a good night. It's gonna be a good, fun sports night
for you. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Oh.
But yeah, we'll be back next week. The Saints will have already played.
Thursday
so
night?
we'll know whether you can wear your gear or not. And actually, next week the Jets play during Sunday Night Football. They're the Sunday night game. They play the
look at that.
Steelers, so
Uh-huh.
that'll be fun too.
Look at that live
So,
reactions.
Yeah, live reactions. I'll keep it clean,
Yes.
or I might just have to mark the episode explicit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see
basically.
what happens.
Get the-
But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll be back next week.
See you.
Thanks for listening to What Did They Know podcast. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media outlets to see future episode details. And don't forget to send in any questions or topics that you want to see the guys discuss in their weekly episodes to come.